Hi, everybody. Can I risen indeed? Hallelujah. Um, wow, what a beautiful day it was. I just came back from service. That's why I had a great service and, just energized to fight the darkness. That's, that's what Christ does. He empowers us to fight the darkness. To cross the street and take care of the Good Samaritan, instead of passing by, far away and saying, no, I'm not going to address the evil, you know. Um, no, we have to charge the gates of hell and not let them get away with what they've done. So, yeah, so here we are on Easter Eve, and I'm just doing everything by memory um, because today has been just another breaking news day. A lot of information coming out, and so we can start, day 2072 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room, a young soldier that wanted to serve, do the right thing, serve his country, absolutely be loyal to the Constitution and his country. Um, was stationed at Fort Bliss, and he absolutely saw mutiny, and this is what 5.5 years I can say on live now because the evidence is overwhelming that he saw infiltrators embedded in our military, on our military base, that were enemies of our country, that were targeting our president. And at the time, President Donald Trump, um, were targeting President Trump uh, to unseat him. Uh, really, it was a coup, right? It was a orchestration to tamper with the election, to destroy him. And this was happening on Fort Bliss. And this is within the military. This is individuals that swore an oath to the Constitution. And that means that the President of the United States was their commander in chief, and um, they weren't loyal to that. They were traitors to that. And they not only were traitors to that, but they orchestrated a mass shooting, a very bloody mass shooting, to target the President of the United States. Um, they they shed blood on our country in order to unseat our president while being paid by the taxpayers and being in uniform. This is what they were doing, because they were also trafficking, and they were serving a domestic enemy in El Paso. Clearly, the evidence confirms that it's not anything that I decided or that I want to say, or no, it's the investigation that the CID, that the command told us that we had to conduct, um, in order to get justice for our son, to find out what happened to our son and bring them leads. Otherwise, they could not help us. And it really is very, uh, very telling, because we've learned that they forcibly removed him from the barracks room, took him downstairs to the arms room because it was soundproof. They took his life. It was brutal. He fought. He bashed in one of the perpetrators' mouth, who had to get emergency dental work done. But they took his life. They took his body. They stole his body off of Fort Bliss, and then they trafficked it after they only had hours, because they were in the business of organ trafficking or organ harvesting. This is what the evidence indicates. It was really terrible, y'all, very terrible. And they then disposed of his partial remains in Mexico. We believe the evidence indicates very strongly a Plenitude crematorium that's owned by individuals that live in El Paso, the home of Fort Bliss. And those individuals are part of this domestic enemy, foreign and domestic enemy, Mormon faction. And I didn't make that up. I never, you can look at my Facebook for years, when I was active. I love the piano guys. I was a big fan of Donny Osmond when I was younger. Um, this has nothing to do with anything but evidence. And the evidence confirms it was a Mormon faction. And I should get online to see if there's any problems. And I'm going to connect this all with this Easter Eve. To see. Okay. Thank you for raising such a hero. Thank you so much for saying that. And yes, he is. And I didn't say that. The President of the United States said that. Many others have said that. And we wanted to make sure we had all the evidence before we said that. And you know what? The evidence confirms that Richard is a huge hero. Huge. I mean, I just can't even express it. And so we're very humbled by that. Because he did stand up and report what they were doing, the infiltration. His own command were the embedded enemies that targeted President Trump. Whether you like President Trump or not, it doesn't matter. He was the President of the United States, the Commander in Chief, and those that were sworn to honor and protect the Constitution of the United States, which clearly makes the President the Commander in Chief, betrayed that and acted with mutiny. And this is why we're in this situation. Oh, and I believe why Glendon Oakley Jr. also lost his life, and many others, because of this very greedy uh, enemies that infiltrated our country, that want our country. They want our country. And they want to destroy our country. And I think that President Trump, and this is just from looking at the historical data, he's not someone that wants to go to war. He wants to prevent it. But what they did on Fort Bliss, in our son's case, and what they did to our son and many others, was an act of war. And it points to Iran. The pipeline points to Iran. And I know that there is, infiltration with our country, so there could be infiltration in other countries of this Mormon faction. The Mormon faction that has been growing for, since 1890, right? They've been growing before then, even. Um, and being polygamist, and this Mormon faction are the polygamists, which includes the Romney family, okay? The Romney family were one of the founding polygamous families in Chihuahua, Mexico. And I know that Candace Owens is supposed to be looking into that in the next week, the connections. And I think she's going to corroborate. I know she's going to corroborate. Well, if she tells what the evidence is, right? She'll corroborate what we've been saying. And with the Wettons, which she has, and the Farnsworths, um, and so these were large families, very, very large families, that became, when you're a large family like that, you do, no matter what, you become powerful. That's why the Israelis in Egypt and history in the Bible, why the Pharaoh wanted to kill um, the babies, right? Why why they wanted to kill the babies, because they were afraid of the growth of the Israelites. And um, so it's all through history, those that have the babies. That's why if you are infiltrating a country and want to take over a country, you might put forth some kind of propaganda against the family, against having children, because people want to take you over, right? I mean, if you don't have children, then you don't have a future. I mean, it's very clear like that. So this they were absolutely growing, and the problem is that the polygamy caused a lot of problems. They weren't, and I'm not speaking on my own like thoughts. I'm speaking clearly from the evidence. The evidence shows a lot of crime, a lot of crime, a lot of crime against children, a lot of crime against women, a lot of crime when it comes to joining up with the Mexican cartel, fine tuning the trafficking, because of having the dual citizenship, the transnational ability to cross and use two countries um, to hide money, to hide the trafficking, to conduct the trafficking, um, and then to enter into the politics of it on two countries and manipulate that. They became criminals. Instead of growing and becoming a blessing, they became a curse. And this Mormon faction is a curse. Um, there's no other way to say it. With all of the trafficking that they did. And, they have billions of dollars, y'all. Billions of dollars. And they have just, um, because of the military contracts they're involved in, because of the military housing contracts they're in and other contracts, because of all the trafficking, because of all the crime they're involved in, they had to compromise our military, they had to compromise other people. And so, in order to compromise, they compromised our independent school districts to get even bonds, right? And um, you know, it's so it's so all consuming in their crime because of the infiltration of the government agencies, whether it be on the state level or the federal level. And in order to cover up those crimes, it created more vile and vulgar and um, very violent, yeah, vile, vulgar, violent crimes. And to the point where, because this is, not just, and then it's enough for the drug trafficking and the arms trafficking with all the ammunition, all the fuel theft, um, and but then they got into compromise. Well, the crimes in their own polygamous situation became with young girls, and then it became, children. And there's a lot of incest. There's a lot of crimes against children, and then they sold it all. I guess they were so desperate to make money. I don't know. They just descended into um, the worst type of crimes against children, definitely. And because they were conducting that, and this is my opinion now, then they didn't value the body. They didn't value death. They didn't, uh, you know, when someone dies, you're supposed to honor that, honor the body because we're made in the image of God. So that's why we have funerals, and that's why we have these burials, right? And you see that with now at Easter time, this very royal rich man burial that Jesus received, um, because and they wanted to put the herbs, and scents on his body and wrap his body, and um, and that was a not just a one-off on just Jesus because he's Christ, you know, the King, the Lord, God in the flesh, and here he is, uh, died on the cross, right? Suffered and died. So they wanted to clean him. They wanted to give him a beautiful burial, a shroud, you know, and respect it, and a funeral procession, even though a wedding procession trumps a funeral procession because a wedding is so important between one man and one woman. It's so important to God that it trumps a funeral procession. But the polygamists, they don't honor that. It's like they're always looking for a girlfriend or a boyfriend or children or whatever. And then you look at the court cases, and it's like these young girls that are wives, and they're asked, where did you come from? And they're like, I don't know where I came from. I don't know how I got here. I don't know my family. I don't know anything. So they're trafficked for this, polygamy lifestyle. Um, and of course it got into all the trafficking, or the cartels. They went into alliance with the cartels. The CJNG, the worst. I mean, these are flesh peddlers. These are human flesh eaters. I mean, it's the worst type of crimes you can't even imagine. And so the death was just nothing to them. And so clearly they got into organ harvesting. Clearly, we know that through Martha Mendez Aguilar, right? La Diabla. We know that they got into that. And uh and when and these are not like oh, I got $1,000 here and $1,000 there or a few hundred here. These are people making millions of dollars and into the billions of dollars. And so they open up universities, they open up health science centers, they uh, they open up shelters uh, to target um, different people uh, for for this business, and um, and they have to infiltrate. I mean, they want to cut their costs, so they want humanitarian aid, U.S. aid, military contracts, and then they name themselves. Uh, you know, they name their centers after themselves. Oh, we're so great. We're so benevolent. We're philanthropists. We're philanthropists, but we're doing the worst type of crimes. Worst type of crimes against humanity, and we're supposed to be honored and put our name on the building and call ourselves philanthropists, and we want everyone to call us philanthropists. So then we buy out media, right? And we form our own media, and then we get them to keep calling us philanthropists, and oh, we're giving an award here, an award here. So then we give our allies that are flush peddlers, uh, and worse, we give them awards. We give them awards. Oh, let's give, oh, Benito Torres, you're so wonderful. You're so wonderful. We'll give you an award, you know? Um, and these are the worst type of people doing the worst type of things. Absolute traitors. I mean, Benito Torres, Sergeant Major, was on for what, decades on the American taxpayers' dime. He's doing these terrible things. He goes over to Beto O'Rourke, serves Beto O'Rourke, who, you have to understand, Beto O'Rourke hired La Diabla's family, live next to the flesh peddlers that purchase Arleano Crons. His family ranch right next to the biggest child trafficker in the history of the United States, Zorro Ranch. Zorro Ranch. His right there, right there together, together. Um, Beto O'Rourke has a lot to explain with his hiring the likes of Attorney Justin Underwood's wife to work for him with La Diabla's family. Um, yeah. So you see the level of betrayal. I mean, and think about it. They wanted Beto O'Rourke to be the president of the United States. I mean, can you imagine? And so then you see the level of absolute targeting, the hate that goes towards President Trump. And I don't, um, and they don't mention Beto O'Rourke. They don't mention Santa Fe and Obama's relationship to that, and Pritzker's relationship to that, and Oprah's relation to that. And they don't mention Veronica Escobar and her bringing forth a illegal an illegal medical examiner to El Paso as the chief medical examiner, who's getting paid like $500,000 a year, and he's part of the cartel. And of course she's going to bring him in. You know why? Because he determines the cause and manner of death. And if they are extracting organs, if they are, you know, um, silencing whistleblowers, and they're collecting on death, then you've got to have a very crooked medical examiner in place. And so, yeah, this is the Mormon faction of death, of philanthropists of death. Um, they're everything that Jesus has overcome. They're everything that Jesus has overcome. And I can't tell you how many times, it's probably happened multiple times a day for over 5 years, where people say, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. They'll get away with it. They'll get away with it. But the thing is they've already lost, because Jesus already overcame them. You see? They already lost. When you're, and I didn't even know the depth of their criminal activities, the depth of the hell that they were living. For what? For a Maserati? To say in Forbes I am getting richer year by year? But the thing is they've already lost. They give each other awards because they know that they've already lost. Jesus has already overcome them all. That kind of darkness and that kind of evil. And that's why we have to stand up to it. Because we're in communion, you see. We're in communion. We have to pick who are we going to be in communion with? The dark or the light? And thanks be to God for Easter. Thanks be to God. And Jesus organized a time. Every time is his. Every second, every part of a second, every everything all through the beginning, it already has been knitted together. It already has been determined. That's what makes him God. And so he set forth the Saturday, right? The Saturday, the silent Saturday. Not the blood of the cross from Friday, the horror of Friday, not the illumination of the Sunday, the burst of life for Sunday. No, the Saturday, the Easter Eve, this silent time when everybody's like, what's going on? Where is he? Where is he? What's going on? No, he died. He died. He was in the hands of wicked men. He was in the heart of the earth. He set that time apart. It's the most mysterious thing, right? Most mysterious thing to show that he's overcome these wicked people. And I know there's been a lot of wicked people in the world, but let me tell you, El Paso, this Mormon faction of El Paso and the Juarez area, wow, they make it really, really to the top. Let me tell you, They make it to the top. And so many are not even aware of the level of evil that's going on. I mean, it reaches all through the United States and all through Mexico and even over to Iran, even over to Palestine. Palestine. I mean, it's, and I'm sure, and I know that it reaches to China. So, I mean, it was Ecuador, right? Ecuador, Peru. Um, it's just so big. And that's why, when we went to Fort Bliss, it makes sense now why they were shaking. The whole base was shaking because they knew Jesus had overcome them. They were caught. The silence of Saturday was done, over, and the light was shining. And now, of course, 5.5 years for God, 5.5 years is nothing. Everything is in His time. Um, because we're the slow ones. At least I'm the slow one. I didn't want to believe a lot of this stuff at the beginning. I got on the news and I said, this is the one time as a mother that I hope that Richard was a jerk because that would mean that he was alive. And I was wrong. I was wrong because he was a hero. He is a hero. And I think that my shortcomings, I need to just be really proud that Richard is a hero to glorify God. I understand now because to go along with what they were doing would be so disgraceful. Would be so disgraceful. Would be such a betrayal against God and everything good. So, yeah, this is the Mormon faction. And they're big, y'all. And they have a lot of money. And their reach is very wide. But it's maybe not such a uh, so many players as we thought. A few players, but they're big. They're into everything. That's what I mean. They're into everything, but not completely. So that's a good thing. So let's go through some of this news, um, because it really is jaw dropping, and that it's coming to light will be like, wow. Um, it truly is Easter to have all this come to light. So today was, and I'm just a little emotional because, of course, it was such a beautiful service, and when I talk about Richard, of course, I miss him, and but I know it. We got to keep going. We got to get his remains repatriated because what they did is an act of war. 100%. There is no doubt about it. What they did is an act of war. They targeted our our whole system and our president. And President Trump absolutely knows that now. And I think after the El Mencho raid and El Mencho losing his life, but getting those logbooks, the ledgers, absolutely. Um, 5 days later, he was in Iran. So let's go over some of the things that um, what happened today, which is just amazing. So this, uh, our Department of State, Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, he terminated the green card status of the family of the Soleimani. I hope I'm saying that right. General Soleimani, of course, President Trump, you know, he took his life, right? Took his life because of what he was doing. And we know that now um, President Trump is being vindicated, right? Because Hamida Soleimani, um, Afshar, I hope I say the name right. Her and her daughter, they were living in Los Angeles. They were living in California. In Saus und Braus, my Oma would say. Um, in a lavish lifestyle. Okay, that's the English way to say it. Lavish lifestyle. In German, my Oma would say Saus und Braus. I kind of like that. Always like that. But not for Solomon, his daughter, on U.S. soil. I mean, this is a family that chanted death to America, death to Americans. What, my son? Death to my son? Yeah, that's who she. Anybody in a uniform that was protecting our Constitution, they wanted dead. You see? And these are people that have means. They're living a lavish lifestyle in California. Wow, that costs a lot of money. That costs a lot of money. Where are they getting the money? And when they have that kind of money and they buy into our military and they compromise our military, or they bring people over to join the military, and you have what Biden allowed. The Biden allowed because the record shows she's been living there for years, buying houses, all the information, you can tell that she's been living there for years, and her social media and everything like that. And they don't they don't want the Constitution. They don't want the United States as we know the United States. And they've been working for years to destroy it, and destroy it from the inside. They're here on our land. They're in our cities. They're in our government. They're in our agencies. People that hate our country. And you can't have the power of the Mormon factions without being allies with them. These are allies. It's a really domestic and foreign enemy. Terroristic enemy. And so Secretary of State Marco Rubio took their green cards away. And they're being held by ICE. Now, it's very interesting because really there are some ICE facilities in California, but the ICE facility that is controlled by the Department of War, that's controlled by President Trump, because if it's controlled by the Department of War, remember that President Trump is the commander in chief. So to be on federal land, being under the control of President Trump, which I think that that's what he would want. So this is, I'm just saying this is the best guess, is that they're being held right there at the ICE facility on Fort Bliss. Now, am I 100%? No, I'm just saying this is a huge possibility. A huge possibility that this is because of the security there, the size of the facility, the jurisdiction of the facility. It is really a huge possibility that that's where they're being held for what, to send them off, to send them back home, go back to Iran, right? Go back to Iran. Why are they, I don't understand why they were living in California to begin with. I don't understand. And that was the Biden 2020, 2021, that was the Biden administration. So yeah, I believe that they're at the it's called the East Montana ICE facility. That's the same ICE facility that retired Sergeant Major um, Benito Torres, who had been working for Beto O'Rourke and then for Veronica Escobar, and he said under Veronica Escobar's instruction or knowledge, he became an imposter. He was masquerading as an attorney to get onto that ICE facility. There's a big scheme with that. There's a big scheme with that. They wanted to get into that ICE facility, and he wanted to, pass them contraband. In this case, it was cell phones. This is so dangerous when you're smuggling cell phones into an ICE facility to detainees, because just think of Soleimani's, family having phones and can coordinate criminal activity against the United States, against the president, against witnesses. Or they could, you know, be handling their drug trafficking, their gang operations, any kind of terroristic activity plots that they wanted to do within the ICE facility with these phones. It really turns uh, the facility, the secure facility, into like a remote command post for their organized criminal activities. So yeah, it's that was not too good for Benito Torres. No, not too good. And not too good for Representative Veronica Escobar, who, of course, was signing the paychecks for, now it's Samaniago, right? Now it's Samaniago signing and we know he's up to no good, but it was Veronica Escobar that she was the uh, person that was signing, the county judge that was signing the paychecks for the medical examiner, right? The medical examiner. Got to have the medical examiner in place. And he's absolutely not qualified to be the medical examiner. He's not qualified at all, because a medical examiner has judicial powers. And when you have judicial powers, that means you're a judge. And if you're a judge, the Texas Constitution says you have to be an American citizen. If you're not an American citizen, you can't have that chief medical examiner's position. Okay. You just can't have it because you have too many powers, right? And but that didn't matter to Veronica Escobar because she's a traitor. And they were, you know, this Mormon faction, which is many different people in it, um, they were up to no good. And they were flesh peddling. They were flesh peddling, y'all. Human flesh peddling. And so that's why that medical examiner is really important. And of course, it explains too why our son had 3 um, autopsies, right? It explains why, because this whole thing in Colorado with the Halfords. Now, if you haven't read our posts, just recently, John Helford and Carrie Helford were sentenced. They were found guilty and sentenced for flesh peddling. Over about 200 bodies left rotting in a house, from babies, little babies, um, all ages, and then giving families cement dust and in the urns, and then taking COVID money, like $1 million. I think it was like 900,000, maybe it's about $1 million in COVID money, and then spending it on Gucci, spending it on trips and stuff like that. The fraud, it was just so bad, and um, so they were just sentenced. I think he was sentenced to like 60 years. She was sentenced to like 20 years. I don't know if that's enough. I don't know. I don't think it's enough. Not when you read all the accounts of the fraud and what they were doing with the families and everything. I don't think it's enough, and the desecration of the body, and all the other things. And this is the odd thing. This is the really odd thing, is that John, his alias was Juan Aguilar. Juan Aguilar. The same name as La Diabla, Aguilar. The same surname. Martha Aguilar, Juan Aguilar. What are the chances of that? It seems like there's a connection, doesn't it? It seems like there's a connection. So, yeah. So this is you know, uh, a real issue that needs to be investigated if there is a major organized crime that from El Paso all the way to Colorado, and beyond that, maybe to California. Um, I think they need to look at, and what are they doing? Are they harvesting organs also and connecting to the Purchase Arellano Caron family? They need to look into that. They need to look into the black market, or universities or health science centers that they worked through. See if they worked through them. And where were this flesh peddling? Where was it going? Where was it coming from? Where was it going? Because they were flesh peddling. There's no doubt. And are they targeting live people? Are they targeting migrants? Are they targeting the very individuals in the ICE centers, in the emergency intake centers? that all needs to be investigated because Veronica Escobar is up to no good. Benito Torres is up to no good. Martha Mendez Aguilar is up to no good. John Halford, aka Juan Aguilar, is up to no good. The Mormon faction philanthropists, narco philanthropists, are up to no good. And they're absolutely connected to the Plenitude Crematorium, over 400 bodies, and now we know thousands. We know thousands. How many years have they been doing this? So, and that's where, of course, evidence indicates our son's remains are. Um, and then there's the connection with Nadal Baim, with, you know, his Palestinian connection. Um, you know, the Iranian, the Iranian faction or Palestinian, the Hamas, and uh, the Iranian regime are, are allies. So, what is, we know that Nadal Baim is a Palestinian arms dealer up to no good. We know that his uh, son-in-law was in Richard's chain of command, but not just any part, that it was G3 operations, top secret clearance, with a father-in-law that was a Palestinian arms dealer with a criminal record for terroristic threats. Something is really wrong there, right? And then you ask, okay, who's giving these top secrets out? Because we know that um, the pilot that was that was given a parcel on Zorro Ranch, that his daughter also was in the military, given top secret clearance. Remember Brooke? um, yeah. And so that brings in this whole Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk. Well, our evidence is indicating that Charlie Kirk was killed because he had presidential um, chances, that he had real political chances, that he was doing so well that he could become president. And our evidence indicates they were absolutely tampering because they were going after Trump. They were trying to control the White House. They wanted to bring in the likes of Beto O'Rourke or Harris, because remember, Veronica Escobar was the co-chair for the Harris campaign. Or, of course, Biden, who Veronica Escobar was also co-chair for the Biden campaign, which is unheard of that works like that, but that's how it was. That's how this El Paso area, with this Mormon faction philanthropist group, how they were having the control over our major politics. So, and this is only the tip of the iceberg, y'all. This is of the evidence that we have that connects all these people together. And when you think of Erica Kirk, her mother's name is Abbas, right? The surname, Lori Abbas. Well, I think it's very interesting that the leader, right, the governing body of West Bank, so is led by President Abbas. I think that is like really, oh my gosh, that would explain so much. Why Erica Kirk has the power that she has politically. Because really, she has proven herself to not have power over the people. I mean, she's not liked at all, not liked at all. You can see clearly that she has been groomed, that she is an impersonator, that she is not authentic at all, and not telling the truth, right? Not authentic at all. And yet she has this political power that confuses people. Why? Well, maybe because of these connections that need careful diplomacy, right? Can't be too hasty. Can't be too hasty because everyone can kind of see clearly well, you can see clearly who Erica Kirk is. But wait a minute, let's not be too hasty in reacting to it because we're talking about a whole network that needs to be shown to the world. The light needs to go on to this whole criminal trafficking. But it's not just like this black market criminal trafficking. It's not like just drug deals, okay? We're talking about institutional trafficking. It got into our institutions. It got into that so that they could take us over. So I think we need to be, and am I saying too much? I don't know if I'm saying too much. I'm saying what the evidence confirms, that there is an infiltration within our military, infiltration within our institutions, uh, infiltration within our agencies, and and their whole goal is to take over these are sleeper cells. These are sleeper cells and active cells. And how active and um yeah, so I'm not the president, I'm not a fancy general. I'm Richard's mother, and I want my son's remains, and I want accountability, and what they did and what they're doing in El Paso is an act of war, and it is absolutely vindicating everything that President Trump has been doing. Absolutely. And does it reach over to other countries like to Israel? Well, the evidence indicates that it did. That it and that well, a good example is JE, right, of Zorro Ranch, of Little St. James. He was playing all sides. He was Mossad, he was CIA, he was NSA, you know, uh, he was Iran Contra. That's the Palestinian, that's the Hamas. So, he was playing all sides. He was, a man for every person. And he was the biggest child trafficker. And of course, Zorro Ranch, and it gets even, there's even more about what's going on in New Mexico, and even the way they were using churches. And of course, we know that from Fort Huachuca, they were infiltrating our institutions, our churches, our religious institutions. Because the Mormon faction, they belong to wards. Believe it or not, that's what they call them, wards. Wards. Please don't call them churches. They're wards. That's what they call them. And, you have some honest individuals that will tell you that. So, yeah, it all needs to be addressed, and I think it's very. It needs a lot of investigation. I couldn't even imagine what kind of law enforcement this is going to take. And now we know Bondi's out. She wasn't up to it. She made a lot of mistakes. She wasn't up to it. She needs to leave. She's gone now. And we'll see who's going to take her place as the prosecutor. But I think that I hope that Richard's case gives everybody an understanding of what's really going on, because I think that the narratives are clearly, we don't buy it. That's what I'm getting, that people are like, I don't understand, but I know what they're telling us is not true. And I think that's pretty much right on, that what they're telling us is not true, right? Because, how can you come out and say we've been infiltrated, we've been embedded, we've been, they're flesh peddling on the taxpayer dime? How do you come out and say that on that kind of level? So it's left to, I believe, us. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you what our evidence absolutely confirms, and our evidence absolutely confirms that everything I'm telling you is true. So, gosh, and and it's just the tip of the iceberg. But no, and especially because it is Easter, the stone has been rolled away, and the light has burst forth, and death has been conquered. And so all of this evil, they don't even have a chance. They don't have a chance. And when we have the faith, um, then the time comes quicker. Our victory comes even quicker. So yeah, that's the good news. That's the good news. And I just wanted to share that with everyone today, because when you're facing this kind of evil, it can be a little daunting. But know that Easter's here, and it's already been conquered. The victory is already ours. We just have to have the faith to acknowledge that, and demand and drive accountability. Yeah. So thank you so much. God bless you. Happy Easter, everybody. He is risen. And, hallelujah, hallelujah. And I will be back tomorrow. Thank you for coming on. Yes, victory of the light. Yep. So thank you so much. And I'll be back tomorrow. God